What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I am Jess and you are watching Keto Rewind. Today is going to be a fun video. We're going to be basically recapping and giving the final touches to my Rewind 90 lifestyle and consistency challenge, and also a little fun announcement for you guys, and also what this video is about, which is restriction. So anyways, let's jump into today's video. Alrighty, first things first, not a doctor, not a healthcare professional, not an expert. This is just my story and how I have been rewinding my health from a morbidly obese weight to a healthy weight through a ketogenic lifestyle, intermittent fasting, bunch of other stuff in between. So talk to your own doctor. So the next thing is my fun announcement. For those of you that saw all of my video, my previous video, watched it all the way to the end, I rewarded you with a little secret. So I have not announced it yet, unless you watched all the way to the end of that previous video. I'll link that video in the cards. But I started a second YouTube channel and I've called it the Overactive Fork. Now it is meant to be funny. It's meant to poke a little humor, get a little, lighten up the topic of weight loss and health journeys, and it's just there's so much weight that's carried in stigma and judgment that's associated with weight loss. That I thought we needed a fun name to kind of call it what it is. So, because I like to be honest on this channel, I decided to call it the Overactive Fork, because I can't blame my morbid obesity on my age, my gender, or being female, hormonal issues, my genetic heart defect. A lot of you know that have been longtime fans know that I have a genetic heart defect that causes cardiomyopathy. No cure for it, but I live with it. But I can't blame giving up on life on my genetic heart defect. I'm throwing fuel on the fire, making it worse. Along those lines, I don't have a good story of how I got so big. I just stopped caring. So I can't blame becoming morbidly obese on anything but my overactive fork. So I hope you take that with a grain of salt and kind of can laugh, because we need some laughter. We need to not take this so seriously, but we kind of need to get our priorities straight. So why did I create the second channel? Well, I am not leaving Keto Rewind. Keto Rewind is, it changed my life. I decided to become, I decided to document my weight journey on that channel, and that's very relevant. I would not redo my channel. I would not redo my health journey any other way other than how I did it. I did keto. Keto was the one saving grace that worked for me. I will stand by it. I will live by it. But now that I've reached a different part of my journey, I started creating new issues, and the constant restriction, I wanted to rebel against that, and that's a new problem. And that was something that could turn into something bad eventually if I don't get a hold of it. I don't want to be a binge eater. I don't want to be somebody who loses control. So I needed to kind of get a handle on that, what's making me do it, and all that kind of thing. But in a nutshell, I would not change the way I changed my life. I 100% would recommend a ketogenic lifestyle. With that said, as I get closer to my goal weight, I want to let up on the rules of living a low-carb lifestyle or a ketogenic lifestyle. The main difference, and most of you know, there isn't a huge change between a ketogenic lifestyle and a low-carb lifestyle, but there is one main rule, and that is keto has a set restriction on carbs, 20 net carbs or less, to stay in that metabolic state of ketosis. Low carb, on the other hand, that isn't defined. But obviously, common sense, low carb still means you're not eating a bunch of crap and processed foods. You're just not defining, your everything that goes in your mouth and trying to get to a 20 or less number. So where one is defined, one is not. So as I'm into that second part of my journey, or the home stretch, that's how I feel I would prefer to live out the rest of my journey and live happily ever after. And that's because it's not so restrictive, it's more laid back, there's no rules, it's just common sense, you know? So I hope that makes sense. I 100% stand by. If I redid my journey, I would do it full on keto. But as I got to the point where I did, after losing 130 pounds, I should have had a plan for what to go forward, instead of like trying to make something work that wasn't working for me, and that overwhelming feeling of restriction. So by taking that total of 20 net carbs or less out of the equation and just living a low carb, high fat, high protein lifestyle, I have been feeling really good and things are working again. So that's what I want to do. The weight loss side of my journey is Keto Rewind. It still is going to exist. I'm still going to post keto recipes, you know, give updates. The channel still is not going anywhere. The overactive fork is for when I share a little bit more of the meals that I'm having with more color, more where there's not so much restriction. So instead of only having green leafy vegetables on the overactive fork channel, you're going to see a nice big plate of all vegetables. I'm not going to demonize tomatoes or carrots or, you know, and stuff along those lines. And I will also be enjoying beans or legumes because I don't have any trouble eating beans or legumes. And they make me happy. They have protein in them. So I don't want to put a bunch of that stuff on the keto channel if that's like offensive to you or will hurt your journey or whatever the case may be. So that's why I felt there was a need and for the two channels. So I hope that clears it up, and I'm sorry I kind of rambled a little bit longer on that than I intended. So anyways, go check out the overactive fork, subscribe, and let's do this together. So anyways, that pretty much is the main difference between the Keto Rewind channel that will continue to live on and the overactive fork, more lighter content, little different recipes when it comes to low carb living. But both channels, that's still not the standard American diet full of processed foods. So that is not what you're going to find on either channel. In fact, that is another reason why I have an overactive fork. Anyways, let's get to the next part. This challenge starts on January 1st, and it's a 90-day challenge, and it is focused on living a lifestyle with consistency. Those two things are the ultimate goals of this challenge. And please watch a previous video or two of more in-depth explanation of this, but the main thing is you want to pick a lifestyle that works for you. Who cares what anybody else thinks? Do what you want to do, that you can stick with, that you'll show up every day and do, and what doesn't feel like a diet. So that's one of the reasons why I switched more to low carb than keto, is because I've been living in a low carb where I've taken so many restrictions I had on myself on the keto lifestyle, where I would only do the green vegetables or the only lettuces, and you know, like onions were bad or tomatoes were bad, and I just was like, what am I saying? You know, there's nothing wrong with a carrot or a tomato or some red peppers instead of green. You know, like it's still vegetables. Nobody got fat eating vegetables. So the focus should be, how do you stay away from processed foods? The standard American diet. That's where I'm shifting my power, you know, within, to avoid all that, to overcome all that, and with less restriction on what I'm actually eating, you know, and just changing that relationship with my food and how I view the food. So that's the main thing. And then with that part, I basically talked about, you know, why I'm doing it that way, why it's not a weight loss channel, but why, if you can get your lifestyle and consistency under control, weight loss is going to be a side effect or a bonus. So that's where I don't want this to be a weight loss challenge. It's bigger than that. And that's one of the things I've learned from losing over 130 pounds. It is more than the number on the scale. So, and the reason why I've been failing the past years, because I haven't been consistent. And you can't expect results unless you're consistent. So, and on top of that, like the note, the main part of this video is about restriction. Now, you can't expect to lose weight if you're not in a caloric deficit. And yes, diets get a bad name because they put labels on stuff and there's rules and all that. But it's still, the rule still does apply that you calories in and calories out in general You can't expect to lose weight if you're eating like 7,000 calories a day and you should only be eating 1,500. I mean, the math just doesn't work on that. So also, as you learn how to live in this new lifestyle, or what you envisioned on being the new lifestyle, you need to know how much foods to eat, you know, when to eat. And I would highly recommend, or I should say, there's not that there's any requirements on my challenge, but the one thing I highly recommend is please track your macros. You don't have to track them for 90 days, but track them for at least at the minimum a week. Learn about what's in your food. Learn how much or how little certain foods can, you know, what their macronutrients will do, you know. So, and for instance, if you are supposed to be eating 1,500 calories a day to get a certain weight loss, you know, a nice average weight loss weekly or something, you don't want to be eating 1,800 calories. So sometimes when the scale's not budging, sometimes it is something as simple as you're eating too much, because that perception and the reality is there's a disconnect. You know, yeah, I'm eating way less than I ate when I was 309 pounds, but I'm still eating too much to sustain a weight loss journey at the current weight. You know, so, and also at the same time, you want to be able to eat enough. I have been guilty a lot in the past by cutting my food to hit that keto numbers so good, of the 20 net carbs, that I left out a lot of extra calories that I should have been eating. So I would be eating at like 1,100 calories and I should have been eating like 1,600, and that's a huge hit on your metabolism. That will slow your metabolism down so fast, and it's another reason why I struggled so much. Because it's very important to eat enough. So I was watching the carbs, but I wasn't watching the calories too, and I was not eating enough. So it absolutely does matter that you're eating enough. And when you visualize and see, okay, well, you took a hamburger, like a 4-ounce hamburger, what does that do? How much fat is in there? How much carbohydrate? How much protein? You're like, what is in that? And how do you play Tetris throughout your day with your food to get the macro goals? So I would highly urge you to check out Carb Manager. Chronometer, I think, is one. MyFitnessPal. You know, there's a ton of macro calculators out there that are free and easy to use. I personally will be using Carb Manager on this channel and my previous channel, but you can get the same results with MyFitnessPal, Chronometer, or whatever it's called. There's a lot of great apps out there. Just download a bunch of the free ones and see which one you like better, or you understand it better, and use that one. So once you've picked your food diary macro calculator, then you're going to calculate your macros. Now for me, for this challenge, I am not setting anything in stone, other than I'm not going to be using the standard keto numbers for this time around, but that doesn't mean you can't. I'm just gonna switch it up a little bit, and I'm going for a low carb, high fat approach instead. So in Carb Manager, I've set my macros to be in a 20% deficit, and I will select the low carb, high fat option, which is 12% carbs, 25% protein, and 63% fat. So I'll put that on the screen here so that you can see what I'm doing. But towards the end of the challenge, I may want to change that to the just low carb, moderate fat option. So we're going to work with this one first and see how things go and how restricted I'm feeling, because I will say, obviously, in order to lose weight, there is some sort of restriction. But the biggest key I can drive home right now is you don't want to feel restricted. So you've got to pick a lifestyle that doesn't feel like you're dieting, that doesn't feel like you're being restricted, because that is how you make it sustainable, maintainable. So, and that's what I'm trying to say. When I was doing the keto numbers, I was feeling like I needed something. I kept needing something, you know, and it was like this, I just maybe wanted more, the food ghost, you know, like I just wanted to, I wasn't being satisfied, and I was feeling restricted, which my nature is to, if you say I can't, I will, you know, and so I'm like, well, that's not going to work either. So how do I not feel restricted, but be in a caloric deficit to change my lifestyle? So, and that was simply changing the macros. So I can have all of the pepper colors now. I don't have to just have green peppers. I can have tomatoes, I can have onions, you know, where those things are all like, ooh, what are you doing if you're a keto person? Those got me so much shame before. If I shared a recipe and I used a red pepper instead of a green pepper, oh, the shame. So that's what I'm trying to say here. I don't want to feel that restriction. I'm going to use all the colors of the peppers. A vegetable is something that I enjoy that is so much better than the standard American processed food diet. You know, I'm not going to demonize the color of a vegetable. I'm just going to enjoy those vegetables. So when it comes to, well, how I'm going to do like 50 net carbs in a day, well, I'm having a lot more vegetables. And that's what makes me feel good. That's what makes me feel satisfied. So when I put my fork down at the end of my meal, I don't need more. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm satisfied. Now let's go do something else. So that's basically what I'm doing in a nutshell. I am not living a lifestyle that feels like a diet. I'm living a lifestyle that I feel good after every meal, that I'm like, yes, you know, where I'm just like, it doesn't feel like I'm dieting anymore, and it's just the new me. And this is how I maintain my weight going forward. So with that said, I'm not going to be posting what I eat in a day videos or giving any menus. I will share what I'm doing, but I'm not doing that all ahead of time. I don't want to do the work for you. I want you to take this initiative. You can watch. I will be filming it all, but I'm not giving it to you way in ahead of time and all that stuff. My role here is just in weight loss inspiration and weight loss motivation, and taking my approach on what a low carb lifestyle is. So I will post my what I eat in a day videos, but I'm going to save those for the Overactive Fork channel, mainly because it's not going to be keto, it's low carb, and I don't want to sabotage somebody in the low carb community with my in the keto community with a low carb option. So, but if you can take that leap and see what I'm doing here and it doesn't offend you, please come join me over at the Overactive Fork. But I do want to remind you, I'm still going to be posting on Keto Rewind. This channel will never go away. This channel changed my life. And I still do believe in a ketogenic lifestyle. I just feel like when you hit a certain point in your journey, it's okay to pivot. And I want to be that person that, okay, you lost all the weight, now what? Well, Keto Rewind lost the weight for me, maintenance-wise, was low carb, you know, and that's how I feel things should go. And if you like that, don't forget, hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications, and I'll see you at the next video. Also, links are all down below if you want to check out the other channel. So I am Jess, you're watching Keto Rewind. Bye-bye!